Everyone, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Market Talk with Musaffa, your weekly deep dive into halal investing, where faith meets finance. We're on a mission to halalify the investment world, one stock at a time, inshallah. So let's explore the markets through the halal lens and covering the opportunities that align with your faith and your future, inshallah. So today is a special day because I have a wonderful guest with us, our investor relation lead, the team member of our investor relation team, and he's one of our veterans. He's already have been with himself long enough to be with us and help us grow together, inshallah. So as I promised everyone, to all our audience, whoever listens us from any parts of the world, we're going to start making it more engaging. We're going to bring guests from within the company. This time, maybe I like Shah, and then I will bring him more. But sometimes we're going to have other team members, inshallah. And we will have some outside guests too, to have this nice discussions about the market, inshallah. So before I go to the topic, very quickly, I want to ask everyone, whoever joins our live session, this Market Talk with Musaffa, please leave your name and the country. No, you don't need your name because your name will appear. Leave where you're joining from. So we want to know which part of the world you're joining and listening to us. And if you are, how long have you known Musaffa? Maybe you can leave that so that it shows that some maybe younger, the people who recently joined and started listening to us, or maybe someone who is our long loyal customers, right? Who has been with us for maybe more than 5 years, inshallah. So we want to know, whoever is joining. And one more thing, please stay active. Ask any of your questions. We love answering questions. That's like a major thing that I come in and talk to you all here on this live session. So, and then today's topic is Venezuela and markets and educational discussion for Muslim investors. Basically, this is our main topic for today. You might have seen the post. And Venezuela has been in the news due to recent this geopolitical shift, that market reaction related to the oil sector, political developments. You know what happened with the previous president. He was taken to U.S. So all of these developments impacted market globally, right? Not only in the U.S. but globally. And we have investors. And if you want it or you don't want it, but still it's a market, it's impacting our decisions, right? As Muslims, even some of or maybe most of the Sharia-compliant stocks are also being affected. Maybe they hit the volatility. All of these may affect. So before we dive into the discussion with Brother Shah, who is going to be sharing his thoughts, I needed to make a quick disclaimer here for everyone. So Musaffa is Musaffa is a US SEC registered investment advisor. And SEC registration doesn't imply that SEC's endorsement or specific skills that we have or whatever. It is just simply registration that puts us in the regulatory requirement that we have to disclose. And this webinar, this session is for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing we discussed today should be considered an investment advice, a recommendation to buy or sell any security, or any other type of professional advice. The views and opinions expressed during this session are our own and may not be representative of the views of the experiences of others. So all investment involves risks, including the possible loss of principal, and past performance doesn't guarantee the future results. And the reference to third companies or brands or logos is informational purposes. We don't endorse them. So these are a little bit very dry language, legalese and disclaimers. But from next time, I will try to make it even fun, even these statements, inshallah. So going back now to our main point. So we're going to be discussing with Brother Shah, but just to look back, basically, what happened that U.S. decided that the president at that time, Maduro, is responsible for some drug-related crime that was investigated in U.S. and they went and took the president. Now there's a transition period, but still, because of Venezuela's impact is high in terms of the oil and energy industries, so there's an impact, right? So that's why we gathered here to discuss it. And there's the really interesting questions I prepared for Brother Shah to answer. Brother Shah, do you want to give a little bit of like your role or like your vision of the halal investment market, like in general, and why you joined to Musaffa? Just a few words that people know your background.
Of course, of course. And first of all, assalamu alaikum to all the viewers, and assalamu alaikum to you as well, Brother Anath. Thank you for having me in this session of Market Talk. Excited to be here and to discuss this very, very relevant topic. But yeah, a bit about myself. I graduated NYU. I had a master's degree in political economics. And initially, I went into the think tank space. So I was working at the Atlantic Council, which even the topic we're discussing today, you'll see a lot of the writings, a lot of the articles you're going to read. They will be citing my former colleagues. And so that's always been something I was super interested in. And I didn't come initially to Musaffa from a straight finance way. I was just looking globally around the world. There's all these institutions at the macro level internationally that Muslims were sort of left out of. We didn't have our own access to capital markets. We didn't really have strong international financial institutions or capital flows. And especially working in that environment, it's sad to look at, sort of. And so when I found out about Musaffa, I learned about Musaffa, I was just so excited, and it made me so passionate because it ticks so many boxes. It's a way for Muslim investors as individuals to make money in a halal way and to learn to do it. Because so many of us, so many people in our community don't know much about finance or investing. So we're teaching people how to do that and to do it in a halal way. So it's great for us as individuals, and it's also great for the community to finally have that input into these markets, to have that say, to have that presence, and which is really, really important, especially the direction the world is going. It's really important for us to have these institutions as a backstop for our community. And then I saw there was a job opening at Musaffa, and I rushed to apply. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. And we've been very grateful for having you on the team. You were instrumental to many things. Thank you for all your strategic thinking, support of the team. Especially, I really love how you are really good at organizing things. Anything that you want Shah to give the organizational, any spreadsheets, documents, whatever, he will put everything in order and amazingly, and then he provides you the best data. Alhamdulillah. So thank you so much for doing that job. Very proud of you as part of the team.
You so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess we could slowly move towards the discussion of the questions. But again, I'm reminding for our audience, please leave any comments that you want to us. We will see your questions. We will see any of your comments, and we can respond to them. What I noticed from our previous live session through this platform, I didn't see the questions, the comments coming from LinkedIn. So if moderators at the back end who are helping us, if they can check LinkedIn and then share the questions to us directly, that would be amazing. So I can read them from here, or questions or comments or anything the people post on LinkedIn. That would be amazing. So people are listening to us from 5 different social media channels. Shah, can you imagine? So we're everywhere live. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So super happy. Okay, so go back to the topic, which is very amazing topic to discuss. And the first question is: has the recent involvement of U.S. government and enforcement of the sanctions, which sanctions have been for a very long time, and maybe they will stay, or maybe they will be taken away, actually change the risk calculus for the investors? So if you can share your perspective. Again, this is not investment advice, but Shah wants to share his own view on it, which is very, very interesting and important. Okay.
Of course, yeah, and this is a great and super pertinent question. So I would say that what's changed for investors really is, and this has been the story since the last couple of years. It was the story of 2025, and it's what I expect to dominate financial markets and global macro moving forward into 2026. Is there's an increasing volatility and uncertainty that investors need to constantly be on the lookout for. So I don't think what happened in Venezuela has much of a direct impact yet. It may moving forward. But what we saw is, for example, the US went in and captured Maduro on January 3rd, which I believe was a Saturday. And then on Monday, the price of the WTI, which is the benchmark oil in the Western Hemisphere, went up $1, which is a very muted impact. And then the next day, it dropped by slightly more than $1. So you see that up and then down drop sort of reflects that volatility where investors are not entirely sure what this means, which direction the impact is, how strong that impact is. So for more of a longer term outlook, I think this is a time for investors to sort of wait and see what exactly is going to happen. And we can get a bit more into that as well. So I would say, again, number one thing for investors really is we're in an environment of increased geopolitical uncertainty. There's higher tail risks. And as a result, we just need to be more careful, keep on top of the news. However, again, so the story of Venezuela really is that Venezuela used to be a major oil producer, and it has the largest proven reserves of crude oil in the world, about
Yeah.
17% of proven reserves. However, their production, especially recently, has been quite low. It's less than 1%, really. So the immediate impact of this on markets is not going to be very high. President Trump has said that the US is going to be managing their oil, and it looks like he's trying to get in more US companies to invest and increase production in Venezuela. But it's not an easy thing to do. It's expensive. It takes a lot of capex, and it takes some time to do. There are some old oil fields and production centers that they can, rehabilitate and bring up to scratch. That might take a year or two, and it will increase production in Venezuela, but probably only to the tune of 1.5 million barrels a day. Right now, Venezuela is making about 800,000 barrels a day. So it's an increase, but it's not a huge increase in the short term. And to increase it in the longer term could cost much, much more money. Lots of
Mm.
analysts are saying different things right now. We won't have a clear estimate until there's actual, US analysts on the ground, more analysts on the ground looking at the situation. But it could take $100 billion or more, depending on which analyst you look at. And so
Yeah.
there's more of a longer term potential impact rather than a short term one. The biggest impact is likely to be as production increases, if production increases, is it's going to keep the price of oil low at historical
Mm.
lows because
Hmm.
there'll be an increase in the supply of crude oil and its
Yeah.
derivatives. Mhm.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for giving that much of the background information, which is
Of
interesting to hear. I know that Brother Shas is. I'm telling you again, he's data guy, so he knows a lot of the background information. Alhamdulillah. So great. So now go to the next question that I was thinking. So what are the specific asset classes and sectors that see volatility in response to the Venezuela related news? Any energy stocks you think, or like ETFs, specific ETFs? Do you think that gold has been like a big thing last year? Is that going to be affected? Again, this is our own thoughts and discussions, of course, based on some news and some data. But again, this is not. Please don't take it as as a source of truth and recommendation for you to make a decision. But again, this is discussion with our Muslim brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillah. So what do you think, Brother Shah?
Great question. So I would say the immediate sectors and asset classes which are going to see the most volatility are, like I mentioned, first of all, the oil itself, right? So WTI and Brent prices, you saw an immediate. They rose, they dropped, they're dropping a bit more. They're likely to rise again, especially because now we're also seeing some tension in Iran, which is another major oil producing country,
Mm-hmm.
in spite of sanctions. So there's going to be definite volatility in the oil market, and that translates also to you're going to see a sort of flight of capital towards safer asset classes. So whenever there's geopolitical uncertainty, geopolitical tension, these sort of tail risks, investors flee from volatile, risky assets where they're not sure what's going to happen to here's something I can
Mm-hmm.
rely on. And that usually historically has included the US dollar and more recently, particularly gold. So we saw 2025 gold has been on quite a tear, and lots of global macro analysts, and again, this is my opinion, this is not the opinion of Musaffa, but I expect that to continue moving forward, especially as there's a few different theaters where we're seeing this uncertainty. We're seeing it in Venezuela, in Ukraine, in Iran, elsewhere in the Middle East, and that's likely to translate into more of an appetite for gold as sort of the money when other monies fail. And other energy prices also, so you're going to see some winners and losers depending on how things play out in Venezuela. As supply increases, it's possible other US suppliers or producers of oil, they might take a bit of a hit, right? Because as supply increases, the price of oil decreases. So companies producing oil, they're going to take a bit of a hit. However, US companies which refine oil, they're going to benefit from this because US Gulf Coast refineries, so very briefly for investors who may not know, when you look at crude oil, there's different types. There's sweet and sour, which refers to how much sulfur content they have, and there's heavy and light. So
Mm-hmm.
Venezuelan oil, even though it's a very large reserve, is very, very heavy. It's very dense, and it's very sour as well. So it's more difficult to refine. However, U.S. Gulf Coast refineries were literally made to refine heavy and sour oils. So
Mm-hmm.
if yes, so when with Venezuela now actually recently selling 30 to 50 million barrels of oil to the U.S. immediately, and probably there's going to be more coming in the future as well. Those refiners are going to benefit because they're going to get that oil. It's going to be great for
Mm-hmm.
them, but U.S. producers may not be quite as happy. So there's going to be winners and losers, and most likely we're going to keep seeing a flight to safer assets like gold. Once again, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, mashallah. Thank you for great analysis. I love it. I love how you're going through everything and then knowing that even different type of the oil is amazing. Um, so okay, now um, if we look at from the Muslim investors lens,
Mhm.
what are the common mistakes Muslim investors might make when the headlines spike like this? So how can they avoid them? Quickly jumping in. Some people might have thought, oh, now oil is the thing. Let me go and then buy all of these halal energy companies, right? Maybe they tried like the first day when they saw the event, they might have gone in and jumped in on the first hour without even analysis, because some people
Of
may think
course,
that way.
of
I
course,
believe education is the key, and then when you know the market, understand it that way, like with the from all angles. You don't go and then jump in quickly, right? You make a
100%.
calculated step before you quickly invest based on the just first news you see on the news channels, right? So
Exactly,
what is
100%.
your thoughts? What is your
I
thoughts? What are the common mistakes Muslim investors might make when they see this kind of headlines?
That's a great point, and basically, I agree very strongly with you. I think a mistake investors might make is they see a big headline, and that might cause them to either panic and sell or to get excited and buy without really taking the time to understand deeper dynamics and what's behind the headline. So obviously, what happened in Venezuela was very, very dramatic as a headline, and it's a very, very big deal. It's going to have ramifications politically speaking, for sure. But like we discussed, the immediate impact on oil is actually not very large. Some companies might think, some investors, sorry, might think, okay, President Trump said we're going to get U.S. oil companies involved, but even the perspective of those oil companies is we have to wait and see because there's a lot of uncertainty even for them. So if the oil
Mm,
companies themselves are having uncertainty, then the investor also has to take that into account. So, for example, like we
yeah.
discussed, in order to increase Venezuelan oil production to past 1.4, 1.5 million barrels of oil a day, it'll take a large amount of investment. Some analysts are saying
Mhm.
over $100 billion perhaps over the next 30 to
Wow.
50 years. And then also that's a longer term investment. So there's some
Yeah.
oil fields which are tight plays or shale plays. Those are,
Hmm.
you do some upfront investment, you get upfront cash, and you don't, it's not something that's going to last a while. Venezuelan oil fields will last a very, very long time. So if I'm an oil company, I'm paying heed to the fact that if I choose to invest in Venezuela, I'm going to be in
Hmm.
Venezuela for probably decades. So
Yeah.
before making an investment that's going to last that long and committing to something that's going to last, it's like a marriage. If before committing to something that could last decades,
Yeah.
um, I have to be careful that it makes sense, right? If for oil companies right now, Venezuela just has huge political risk, right? Their president was captured, their vice president is in charge. It's not clear what their political system is going to be.
Hmm.
So for me, if I'm Chevron, or Chevron's already there, but if I'm ExxonMobil or any other oil company, I'm going to be worried, okay, if I commit to an investment now, what if 10 years later, the next president of Venezuela nationalizes my investment and just takes it,
Exactly.
which is
Which
to a large
happened two
degree.
times. Which happened
Exactly.
already two times, right? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So before making any bigger commitments or specific commitments, I think these oil companies are going to wait to have a clearer picture of what credibly is going to happen politically for Venezuela before I can financially make that commitment. And so before we also as investors see that, I think number one takeaway for Muslim investors is to slow down and understand what's behind the headline rather than just jumping at the headline itself.
Exactly. And I want to highlight here, even the event, I guess, I don't know if you watched it, but the
Mhm.
Exxon's executive said, at this moment it's an investable, right, investment.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
they're not committed because not only that political agenda may shift in Venezuela, but it may also shift after 4 years when the Trump ends his presidency, right? So
Exactly.
and then what
Exactly.
happens is, are they going to have the same support or no? So and for especially long-term investing companies, the oil companies, it is a huge risk to make a decision, right? So
100%.
now I want also to give a little bit small comparison. Companies who is in oil industry, they're very comfortable to go and then work with Norway. Norway is a
100%.
very small company in Europe, but it's so stable that all the companies, even the margin is low, they're okay with that because it's long term, it's going to pay off. But when you're coming into the risky, it's a little bit of big problem for these companies. Okay, now I'm going to move a little bit to forward looking a little bit, and just want to mention that we also post articles or some posts about these things on Academy. Go and check Musaffa Academy. It's academy.musaffa.com. Also, I want to inform everyone that we don't use any other domains than musaffa.com, and then musaffa.us. US. Okay, so these two domains we use, and then any of our posts are there. Please don't. There's sometimes it appears with any company, I believe, someone takes another domain with the same name, and they try to probably the imposter or like scam people. Don't only our domains are these two domains, okay? And then if you want to check our academy, please check academymusaffa.com. So there we post, and then we posted really good article when the Venezuela topic came up, alhamdulillah. So you can go and check that. So now, next question: if the Venezuelan oil production ramps up meaningfully in the future, what might that mean for global energy markets and indirectly for halal portfolios as well?
Of
So
course,
is
that's a
that
great.
also, that there are lots of portfolios. You probably know some the companies have their own ETFs. If they have any huge oil sector in their energy sector, there will that be affected as well?
Of course, great question. So long term, if Venezuelan oil production ramps up, and we discussed this a bit briefly earlier as well, there's going to be some winners and losers in the energy sector. So number one is more supply means the prices. So a lot of oil companies, they might not actually be making as much revenue as before because the price has gone down. However, companies specifically that, for example, if they invest in Venezuela, and that could increase revenue for those specific companies. For example, and again, this is opinion, this is not financial advice or an investment advice. Chevron is a U.S. company that's been in Venezuela. It never left Venezuela even after the nationalization. Even though its production relationship, the deal with the government changed, it stayed there. So an immediate winner might be, and again, this is not advice, this is an opinion, but an immediate winner might be Chevron, because right now, temporarily or to some degree, it seems like the US might lift sanctions on Venezuela so it can sell oil to global markets. And that's a big win for Chevron. So it's easier for Chevron to sell oil it's producing in Venezuela elsewhere as well. So there's going to be winners and losers. Like I said, the Gulf Coast refiners in the US that that can efficiently refine Venezuelan oil, that's going to be a winner. And other oil producers, the lower price makes it less profitable for them to produce oil, they might be losers. However, other outside of the oil sector as well, there's going to be winners, because for a lot of companies, especially heavy industry, but a large number of companies, they're going to be using as an input refined forms of crude oil. So they're going to be using diesel, jet fuel, crude oil, all its derivatives, and more supply means the price of those things goes down, which means for other companies not in the oil sector, it's cheaper for me to produce my goods. So my profit margins increase. So it would also be wise to, if production ramps up, the global oil supply increases, it makes sense to keep an eye on what are companies that have meaningfully large inputs of oil or crude oil and its derivatives. Those companies will be winners, or again, in my opinion, are likely to be winners in this scenario as well.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you so much for going through that. Um, Again, if you have any comments, any questions, anything that you want to share, please share with us. If it comes on the chat, I will put it. And thank you for listening and tuning in. So we have a few more questions, and hopefully then we can ramp up because we usually plan for 30 minutes. So next one is, what lessons can Muslims investors take from emerging markets? Emerging markets, it's in general, not only Venezuela, but Venezuela is also an example, that have experienced geopolitical shocks before. And how does Venezuela compare? So maybe in other shocks, we had we have this Iran situation coming up, but we had Libya before, right? Which was reached to oil, and other cases which happened in the past. So any comparison that you can draw, or that could be like a learning process for Muslim investors if they want to consider this.
For sure. Great. It's a great thing to consider for Muslim investors and investors in general, actually. One important thing is emerging markets sometimes can have great returns, like above normal returns, especially if their economies are converging with Western developed industrialized democracies. However, what this really teaches us, and when you look at other places like Libya, like Argentina in the past, like Iran, what looks to be happening in Iran, is that while emerging markets may often have potential strong upsides, there's also a high risk of geopolitical crises, of political upheavals, just these tail risks of which can introduce tremendous uncertainty. So it's important for investors to diversify, right? Make sure you don't have all your eggs in one basket, because if you are heavily exposed to emerging markets, you're also heavily exposed to risk. So it's important to balance your portfolio. There's lots of different ways of doing that, but to balance your portfolios between different assets and different asset classes. For example, Ray Dalio, who is a great commodities trader, a global macro investor, he has an all-weather portfolio that he recommends for investors. Again, this is not financial advice I'm giving. I'm just trying to explain how these top traders and investors, they look at things as well. And he also recommends, for example, you put 30% in stocks, 40% in bonds, 7.5% in gold, 7.5% in commodities like oil.
Yeah.
And so it's important to diversify, because if you're exposed to any one asset, if that asset suffers, your whole portfolio suffers. So that's, I would say, the number one takeaway. Another thing is, there are some common winners and losers in situations like this. One
Hmm.
winner, which is not really, I believe, something Muslim investors would benefit much from, but bondholders sometimes in situations like this can benefit, in the sense that it's a weird situation where people who are holding Venezuelan bonds were suffering because Venezuela was not paying on those bonds, because Venezuela was not,
Mm.
its GDP has been quite low. For reference, I think Venezuela's GDP is about $80 billion, and it owes, I think, around $100 billion to its bondholders, and its external
Mm.
debt is something like $170 billion. So it's
Wow.
been bad for, if you're a bondholder for Venezuela, if you're holding Venezuelan bonds, it's been bad news. But
Hmm.
now in situations like this, you suddenly have a slimmer of hope that, okay, maybe there could be a restructuring process for those bonds, and I could finally make some money. Especially what usually happens is, if you were holding Venezuelan bonds, you see, okay, Venezuela's not paying on those bonds, I'll sell them. So you sell them very cheaply. So usually what happens is these funds come in, which are usually called vulture funds. They'll come in,
Hmm.
they'll buy a large number of these bonds very cheaply. Then something like this will happen in Venezuela, and suddenly maybe I can get paid a premium on those bonds that I bought very cheaply. However, obviously these bonds typically are not Sharia compliant bonds in the first place. So this is more so just something interesting I'm sharing rather than something Muslim investors can benefit from. The number one takeaway again is to be aware of what's happening behind the headlines, and to make sure to diversify your portfolio, especially from emerging markets where there could be strong political risks.
Awesome. Thank you so much for diving in. It's been really amazing. So I want to tell Brother Shah. So because I've done it with the multiple people, and this one was the best. So you want your space that you're gonna be the most invited guest to these shows,
I'm
inshallah.
happy to do it,
So
inshallah.
and yeah, great. So we're gonna come and discuss all these different topics. I can allude to the next topic I really want to discuss next time. And it's I believe it's going to be hot topic still. It won't die in 1 week.
Problem.
That that Saudi is opening its market, and there are a few Central Asian countries making the big changes. Right. So we'll discuss those country wise topics in terms of the investment. Again, emerging markets was our very last question for this regard.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited to hop on again anytime. It's been super fun, and thank you for having me.
absolutely. So we were not able to screen today the our screen, but next time we'll definitely go a little bit in detail about our platform. We'll try to get the demo demo for the trading platform. I believe, Brother Shah, you have your trading platform already like account opened, so you can show us a little bit how things work in the trading platform, because it's a big thing for Musaffa, right?
Definitely.
We launched the trading platform
Um,
across so many countries. So you can now open account, go through KYC, and then actually trade. Can you imagine? Soon we're coming to US too, because US has its own regulations in terms of the real-time data that we need to provide, the most the best national bidding process information, the latest data we have to provide. So that's what we're working on, and inshallah it will be soon launched in US too. So thank you so much everyone for tuning in, to listening us, to being with Mustafa and then watching us. So we will continue doing this. If you like, please leave your questions, leave your comments, and also from next time I will ask our team to put the email where you can send email questions in advance that you want to ask, or maybe topics you want to cover on these market talks, and then we will we can bring those topics onto the air. If you're interested to be on these live sessions, you can also send to us through that email, and we will be super happy to bring you in and discuss with you on the air, inshallah. So this was a very, very good discussion. Thank you so much, Brother Shah.
Thank
And
you.
then we'll stay with our community and then keep them informed, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay,
Inshallah.
so here we end our sessions. I'll ask our moderators to end the show, but I believe myself and yourself, Brother Shah, we can remove ourselves from from
It's
the
absolutely.
from the live. Let
Mhm.
me ask 1 second. Okay, I don't know how to remove it right now. I guess our moderators are going to remove it soon. Um, but I guess what we can do, we can leave. There's a leave button, I believe.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, brother. Assalamu alaikum, brother
Thank
Shah.
you.